It is Thursday, October 16th. This is The Signal. I'm Bernice Hillier in Corner Brook. Adam Walsh is away. Today on the show, the most significant operation for Canadian forces in 2 generations. We're talking about Canada's operation in Afghanistan, what it means for those who served, and for all Canadians. We will be hearing from veterans today who have joined us in studio in St. John's, and we'll hear from the director and the producer of a documentary called Fallen Heroes, Their Journey Home. We're going to be speaking with the director and producer in just a moment. If you want to be part of the conversation today, we would like you to do that by texting us. So if you have some comments to share or a question for our guest, you can text to us during the live show, 709-327-8206. You can send us an email as well, thesignal@cbc.ca. We have 3 guests in our St. John's studio, so we'll go to them first before we go to the phone lines with our other guests who are joining us. So let's hear from our veterans that have gathered today. We're going to welcome them to The Signal. Donald Hookey is with us. Good afternoon to you, Donald, and thanks for joining us.
Good day, Bernice. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing today?
Not too bad.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your service.
I started out my military career back in 1993. I joined the Navy, so I am a Cornwallis. I know anybody that served in the military. One of the last few courses that actually go through Cornwallis before it shut down permanently. So I joined the Navy, like I said. I was a radio operator. We amalgamated with another trade, signalman, to create a new trade called naval communicator. I served on a couple of different ships on both coasts, Halifax and Esquimalt. Part of the Swiss Air Recovery crash on board HMCS Preserver in 1998. I did a tour on board HMCS Charlottetown with the USS Harry S. Truman Battle Group, which was an American battle group in the Persian Gulf in 2001, prior to September 11th. And then I did a tour after I remustered to an Army trade. I was what's called a mobile support equipment operator. Civilian side, it's trucker. And I did a tour to Afghanistan in 2006 as a trucker.
We have Brent Bashara with us as well today. Brent, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your service.
Good morning, Bernice. Thank you. I served 24 years in a day. I did 2 tours overseas. I got back from Afghanistan in March of 2004. I served in the infantry with the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry for 6 years, then remustered over to Clarence Diver. I got to serve with the Commandos for 5 years. I had a great career, but it came at a cost. It cost me mentally. It cost me physically. I got out in 2007. So for me, the thing was learning how to heal and deal and process my service, if you will. And so for me, it was a case of I became a student again, a bit of a scientist and explorer, and I went back to school, and in the sense of going online and figuring out what I was attracted to. And so I figured some things out for myself about mental health, fitness, and such. And so because I know these tips, tricks, and tools can work for me, I want to give back. So I've been speaking in school since 2006. I went to Toronto, Poland, and Amsterdam, trained with the Iceman, Wim Hof, about mindset, breathwork, and gradual cold exposure. So that's what I want to do now, is just give back to the community. I've designed a breathwork program for schools, K-12, for students and staff, just a 2-minute breathwork program because when we give our kids a head start in the morning, we all get a head start. So that's what I want to do, is give them the tips and tricks and tools to be adaptive and resilient with our ever-changing society that we live in, because they're going to be taking care of us soon, and I'd like them to be, on top of it.
So that's Don Hookey and Brent Bashara, who are veterans of Afghanistan as well. But I want to bring Simon McGuinness into the conversation. Welcome to The Signal, first of all, Simon, and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you, Bernice. I I enrolled in the Canadian Armed Forces in 1994. Started in infantry, and through the basic training, I got injured and wanted to stay on. And so I stayed on and worked with physiotherapists and stuff like that to get back to operational strength. And then in 1995, I returned and remustered to Air Defense Artillery, where I spent the major part of my career. And then I released in 2004. It wasn't until about 2019 that I got involved with Soldier On. Got introduced to that program, that organization, and it basically helped in my recovery. Soldier On, since 2007, has helped over 13,000 veterans to deal with their recovery from illness, injury, whatever, through sports, recreational activities, creative activities. And veterans that go through these programs find that they owe a lot to Soldier On. And that's the reason that we're here today is Karen will talk about the film, but my reasoning for the film is that I've seen some of the ramp ceremonies that Don and Brent have seen themselves, but not a lot of Newfoundlanders have seen that because we don't live in Trenton or Edmonton where these ramp ceremonies take place. But we are familiar now because of the repatriation of the unknown soldier that took place last year. We've seen that, but we've never really seen the full effect of it. And when I saw the film, I was so moved by Karen and Robert's devotion to carrying on the cause that I wanted to do that. And then I wanted to turn it into a fundraiser to support Soldier On.
So you brought the film to St. John's, obviously something that impacted you, and you wanted it to be shared with others.
Yes.
Simon, what was it that struck you about this film that made you think, yes, this is worth having everyone see this to help us all to understand what Afghanistan meant to all of us, but particularly to those who served, like Don and Brent?
Well, like myself, I said I didn't have the experience to go to Afghanistan. I did have the training to go, but I didn't have the opportunity like my two friends here got to go. And the film really speaks to the true authenticity of the experience of going to Afghanistan and coming home, and how it not only affects just those of us that have served, but the greater community. And we here in Newfoundland have seen that now because of the repatriation of the unknown soldier and how moving that ceremony is, that I wanted to bring the film here and allow people to not only just reflect on our service, but the greater service of Canada. And a little known fact that I just recently found out is that 12% of the armed forces of Canada is made up of Newfoundland Labradorians. So we may be small in number, but we're very mighty in the organization of the Canadian Armed Forces.
Well, thank you to all three of you for joining me today. We'll be with you throughout the program, and you'll be with us on the line. We are joined by both the producer and the director of Fallen Heroes, their journey. So we have Karen Storwick with us, the producer of the Fallen Heroes journey documentary. Fallen Heroes, Their Journey Home is the name of it. And welcome to the program, Karen.
Oh, thank you very much, Bernice. It's nice to be here this morning.
Karen, thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to hear all about what you set out to make with this film. But first, we're going to welcome Robert to the program as well. Robert Curtin is the director of Fallen Heroes, Their Journey Home. Hello to you, Robert. Welcome to The Signal.
Good morning, Bernice. It's good to be here.
Good to have you with us. Karen, I guess tell us a little bit about where the idea came from to make this film.
Well, Robert and I we're a Calgary team. We're military historians, and we've been producing content for military museums for the better part of 20 years. And we've done a lot of work here in Alberta, I think, which is why we both said good morning. I know you're in the afternoon, but here in Alberta, we're in close proximity to the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, and we've done a lot of work with them over the years. In fact, paying tribute to the First and Second World War history. And while we were doing that, working very closely with all of the soldiers, especially in regimental headquarters, while we were very intent on paying tribute to the history of the Great Wars, we were actually getting to know all of these guys that were rotating in and out of Afghanistan at the time. And so almost inadvertently, we started to really get a strong understanding of what their experience was, and we began to interview them. In particular, one of the soldiers that we worked very closely with is Master Warrant Officer Jim Butters. And when he told Robert and I the story about the first ramp ceremony in 2002, after the Americans dropped a JDAM on the Canadian position, and we suffered our first 4 fallen. Both Robert and I were just brought to our knees by this story, and we felt so moved by it that we made a commitment to ourselves that we were going to find a way to bring this story to Canadians, and that was way back in 2012. And I'll let Robert contribute to the story, but that was our first inspiration, and from that moment on, we tried to interview as many Afghanistan veterans as we could, and to the point where we actually, I think, became kind of well known in the space, and we were asked to interview veterans across the country. We got a contract with the Directorate of History and Heritage, the historical wing of DND, to interview veterans across the country in 2016 with the ultimate goal of creating a national touring exhibit called Mission Afghanistan. And Robert, this is probably a good time for me to hand over the mic to you.
Yeah, Robert, I want to bring you into the conversation. So pick up the story of how this film came about.
Well, it's really fascinating. Karen and I, as Karen mentioned, found out about the very first ramp ceremony, which was actually created by Master Warrant Officer Jim Butters. And I have to say, at a military event, I walked up to Jim Butters and gave him a kiss. Now, everyone kind of stepped back and went, "What?" But I was then able to say, thank you for your service and thank you for what you have achieved. Many people learned about the war in Afghanistan and our losses by seeing ramp ceremonies on the news or in the newspaper, but nobody knew that a Canadian actually created the ramp ceremony. And so when we were creating this film, we were able to engage Jim Butters, and he was able to assist us from a technical standpoint and involved in the shooting. But this man considers the ramp ceremony and the story of it to be his legacy. And so we have, as Karen mentioned, we have interviewed personnel who served in ramp ceremonies from the entire period of the war. To date, we have interviewed over 350 soldiers, men and women who served in Afghanistan, as well as 2 prime ministers and 2 defense ministers, so that we could get a really clear idea of how that war played out, why we were there, what we did while we were there, and maybe the result at the end. And then we could let Canadians know what they have done in the war in Afghanistan.
Karen or Robert, I don't know which one of you would want to take this question, but how do you go about deciding whether this is going to be purely, a straight-up documentary, whether you would have reenactments included as part of telling that story through video? How do you go about deciding how to tell this story? Because it is of such a sensitive nature, and you want to get it right.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good question for Robert. I mean, we spent a lot of time poring over the stories and the script, and we understood that the first story, the film was initially called The First Ramp Ceremony, but the more soldiers that we interviewed, the more we realized that this is a much bigger story. And so the title evolved into Fallen Heroes, Their Journey Home. And we had such an incredible amount of stories to work with. But the vision for the film, the artistic vision, that I think Robert can help you understand that.
Yeah, Robert,
Well,
how do you go about deciding, I guess, how to tell this story through video?
Well, there are so many stories. If you can imagine, over 350 interviews with personnel who served, and invariably there were tears on both sides of the camera. But we had to be careful. We didn't want to go into difficult imagery, but at the same time, we wanted to be able to portray the accurate experience of the men and women who served there. And so we were very, very fortunate that we actually had serving soldiers and soldiers who had returned from Afghanistan and were now out of the forces. Many of them actually played themselves in the recreations. So, for example, people may remember that our diplomat, Glenn Berry, was killed. The driver of that vehicle was Paul Franklin. Paul Franklin lost both his legs in that incident. Glenn Berry was killed. Paul Franklin played himself as the driver of that G-Wagon, and when it was struck by a vehicle-borne IED, and then went on to tell in detail the story. It's really a powerful message that these men and women who served were willing to go on camera and tell these heart-rending stories, but it was also a catharsis. At the end of these interviews, invariably, we had soldiers coming to us and thanking us for having the opportunity to be able to tear that Band-Aid off and look at that experience one more time, in many cases, a number of years afterwards. But they had held it inside and covered it over. And now they had an opportunity to take it out and look at it. And so how do we make a decision? We try and take the key events that will help portray the story, and then we recreate it on a variety of locations. We've shot the very first ramp ceremony, in fact, in an armory here in Calgary with all the lights off at night, and we supered in a C-17 for the very first ramp ceremony, and that came over very well. We also were able to shoot on Suffield, which is one of Canada's military bases here in Alberta, in southeastern Alberta, that looks very much like Afghanistan. And then we also filmed in a location called Sandy Point Park, which is right on the border between Saskatchewan and Alberta. And it is right along the South Saskatchewan River. It looks exactly like the Arghandab River in Panjwai district of Afghanistan. In fact, the soldiers who helped us recreate those events, along with volunteers, came to us and said, "This is amazing. This is Afghanistan. This looks just like Afghanistan." So as historians, Karen and I endeavored to be as accurate as possible. We are telling these powerful stories by these men and women who served, and we want to do them honor by making sure the storytelling is as accurate as possible.
I want to come back to our studio. Don and Brent are here, of course, veterans of Afghanistan. What would you say about how accurately this film captures what it was like?
I will be seeing it for the first time this Saturday. My wife and I have got tickets and donated some extra money to Soldier On, so I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm going to be bringing a box of tissues with me for sure.
Brent, have you had an opportunity to see it yet?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Just hearing it talked about, Brent, when you hear what's there, I guess, what word of caution would you have for someone who's lived through it, as you and Don have, and now you're seeing it on a big screen, dramatized to some extent, but I can imagine that no further dramatization is needed beyond what you actually lived through.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. It's difficult to almost talk about. So I think it's more, from my understanding and from my feeling about it, it's a case of, for those of us in the civilian world that haven't seen, that want more information about service and what the Canadian military is doing overseas, providing those services to the military operations, but also to the civilians. Like for me, one of the touching moments is that the engineers over there, I found one of the biggest supports for it was that they're bringing water to villages and building schools. So for me, that was an important part for me, that's giving back to the situation over there. With regards to the ramp ceremonies, again, it's for those of us who haven't seen it, that want more information, understand the commitment of being in service to the Canadian military and what that means, and the sacrifices and the toll it takes on it. Again, as I've learned in my healing and dealing process, that if you want to send them, you got to mend them, right? And everyone that goes overseas is, hashtag been there, done that, but it comes at a cost. And to be able to come back home and be able to resume life in civilian life or in service still in the military, we got to help those that come back, that have served. And it doesn't matter if you've served overseas or not. Being in the military is a hard job, man. And so we got to take care of our men and women.
Simon, why did you want to bring this film to St. John's?
Because unlike Brent and Don, I didn't have the opportunity to go to Afghanistan. I was fully trained to go, but my time in the military ended in 2004. And so I didn't get to go to Afghanistan. But with that said, I did get to experience a couple of the ramp ceremonies that happened in Trenton. And I got to see the experience of the Highway of Heroes and stuff like that. And just the sheer camaraderie that the whole nation of Canada put out. And if people haven't seen the Highway to Heroes experience, it's overpass after overpass, people lined up, and people will pull over and see this converse of hearses and police cars and military vehicles going down the highway. And people are getting out and just standing at attention and paying their respects to a fallen soldier, a fallen Canadian, and paying their respects that way. And so the reason I brought it was, here in Newfoundland, we are somewhat experienced in a ramp ceremony because a couple years ago, we brought the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier to St. John's. And a lot of people went to the airport, saw the repatriation ceremony. And I just wanted to bring some more truth to that, to bring it home and tell more stories, because that's kind of what I've been doing in the last number of years, is trying to tell the stories of my colleagues like Brent and Don and others that every day spent living for Canada and now coming home and wanting to support them. And that's why I brought the film. And I reached out to Karen and Robert to talk about the film and worked on bringing it here to St. John's.
And Simon, what is the opportunity that people will now have to see it? Don is going to be seeing it on the weekend. Where and when can people see this film?
You can see it this Saturday, October 18th, at the Spirit of Newfoundland. I got to give a big shout out to Kathy Hicks and Peter Halley at the Spirit of Newfoundland as they opened up their venue and their schedule to allow us to host this event. And doors open at 6:30. The film starts at 7. There's plenty of social media that's been floating around on Facebook and different venues. But yeah, I look forward to seeing it. I look forward to sharing the film with those that come in attendance and all that. And it is a split fundraiser. Part of the money will go back to Robert and Karen to continue their work in documentary. And the other part of the portion of the fundraiser will go to Soldier On.
I want to play a clip from the documentary, and in this clip, I've chosen it because it mentions a Newfoundland and Labrador soldier who was killed in the line of duty in Afghanistan, Sergeant Vaughn Ingram, originally from Burgeo. Just take a listen.
I was on the radio, and then all of a sudden, a round hits.
One of the projectiles actually struck the wall and threw me across the room.
My ears are ringing, I can't see. It felt like time was slowing down.
Obviously, there was a number of guys dead, and there was an even greater number of guys that were wounded.
I remember seeing Vaughn Ingram. He was hit, but still trying to look after his men. He was still trying to do first aid on guys, and eventually I saw him just kind of put his head down, and the things that go through your head, illogically, I thought he was just taking a rest.
That is a clip from Fallen Heroes, their journey home. And maybe I'm going to come back now to Robert Curtin, the director of Fallen Heroes, who could put that clip in some context for us. This is a film, Robert, that is very fast-paced, and it tells a story that many of us have never heard, or never heard in quite the way that you present it. Just talk a little bit about what we heard there and the mission that they were in the middle of when Sergeant Vaughn Ingram and I believe 2 other Canadians were killed.
Yes, that event took place on August 3rd, 2006. And the soldiers were approaching a location called the White School. It was a Taliban strongpoint, and their orders were to try and take that school over. There was supposedly a wounded Taliban commander that they were supposed to capture. In the end, it was a trap. It was a trap to kill Canadian soldiers. 14 soldiers made their way towards the school. They got as far as the outhouses at the outside the building, and they were basically hunkered down inside these mud outhouses when, of course, they came under enormous fire. 4 guys were killed that day, one of them being Vaughn Ingram. I have to say that I know the guys who are best friends with Vaughn. He was a marvelous soldier. He stepped up when another soldier, Sean, Karen, help me, what's Sean's last name?
You're talking about Sean Peterson.
I remember. So Sean Peterson was wounded in an attack, and so Vaughn stepped up, and he was commanding Charlie Company at the time. And the voice you heard were 2 guys that were actually in that event with them, Willie McDonald and John Hamilton, and they were able to describe that story in detail. It was then our job as filmmakers to represent that event as clearly as humanly possible. And I think we have managed to pull it off. Yes, it's fast moving. They were under attack. This event took place when you're dodging bullets. The seconds go by pretty quickly. But I think in the end, it portrayed the experience of these soldiers, and that was important to us.
Karen, how do you think this helps our understanding of what Afghanistan was like for the soldiers who served there? Because, you know, we can say that we understand, but we really don't. And obviously a film isn't going to give us the full picture of what it was like. But how do you feel hearing some of that played out in a film like this? How does it help us to understand, and why was it important for Canadians to see that?
Well, I think, I wanted to step back just to kind of lay the groundwork for that answer too. When you were saying, how do we decide to recreate or to make a standard documentary? One of the things that that was really, really important to us is to not just lay the groundwork for a historical documentary, but to really somehow dramatize this in a way that helps Canadians understand. And that's the reason why I think the recreations are so important, that we don't want kids in schools to sit and feel bored by a bunch of people talking about things that they can't relate to. The recreations help us dramatize these events in a way that it hits the viewer, I think, viscerally. And I think it's only when you're hit on an emotional level, on a visceral level, that you can really kind of transcend into what's going on and what these people are experiencing. And you know, in our world where we're bombarded by kind of over-sensory devices, it's I think an extra challenge to try to reach people. And one of there's two things that we really wanted to do with this film. We wanted to pay tribute to service and sacrifice. We spent so much time with Canadian soldiers, and we feel in a constant awe of the incredible things that our soldiers, sailors, and aviators are doing in theaters around the world. And yet, as Canadians, you know, we look around us and we have these conversations, and so few Canadians really spend any time thinking about the incredible resource that we have in our Canadian forces. And so, you know, I think we really, as much as we want to honor the members in our men and women in uniform through this film, we want to kind of wake up Canadians. And so that's, I think, why we chose to portray the film the way we did in a dramatic way like this, so that we can really help people understand what it was like to be there. And I think that's really the crux of it, is that this film, I think we even had one general say he could taste and smell Afghanistan after seeing this film. And that authenticity for us was so important, not only to be able to gain the respect of military members who watch the film, because, you know, they're our most important critics, but to be able to reach Canadians on a sensory level about the experience that our men and women in uniform have when they're deployed overseas, and the kinds of things they're doing. It was talked about how we were building schools and building wells for villages, and, you know, fighting was only just one small part of what was being done in Afghanistan over the period of 14 years. We had a defensive responsibility, so keeping the bullies out of the playground, but within the area of operations, incredible building projects were taking place and support projects for villagers. And I think that's what so many soldiers are so proud of, is the work that they did with the people in Afghanistan. And, you know, one of the things that we realize with this film is that we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. In this film, we're not portraying every unit that was there. We're not portraying every battle. All we wanted to do was create some sort of signature battles that would help Canadians understand what it was like to be there. But our goal is to now create a 10-part documentary series that we can really lay out that history and the incredible things that Canadians did over there, and why we should be so proud.
I want to come back to the studio. Don Hookey, I want to ask you, if you were to tell people listening today one thing that you'd want to share about Afghanistan, about the Canadian forces serving there, what would it be?
Just don't forget us. And this documentaries like this is something that, memories will be living on forever. So thank you guys for putting this documentary together, and for Simon for bringing it here, and for you guys here at CBC Radio for allowing us to talk about it.
Don, what is it like to be a veteran in the modern day? I mean, so often we became accustomed to, when we were growing up, seeing the Second World War veterans, the Korean War vets.
The gray-haired veterans?
Well, yeah, and you're younger than some of them that I can recall when I was a child. But yeah, I mean, now we have modern day veterans, sadly, who but we need to pay tribute to you. Sadly, that there was this conflict that you responded to, that you served, and we thank you for your service. But what does it mean to you for Remembrance Day now coming up in less than a month?
So I have a little bit of special thing. My youngest daughter, started serving, and once she put the uniform on, we're together every Remembrance Day. So she's currently serving in CFB Gagetown. So they're going to be here during Remembrance Week. I'm getting a little emotional, but
that's pretty special.
I think Remembrance Day, as the years are going further on, I'm actually finding Remembrance Days actually harder to deal with. In the old analogy, time heals wounds. Feels like my wounds are getting open bigger. I think it's because more memories are able to pop up because, like Brent was saying, doing the work, getting to the nitty-gritty of things and just finding out about yourself. Yeah, I'm more open, more vulnerable, but I'm
now
also
than
more
you were.
approachable. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm the same way too because I released in 2004 and I didn't get involved in any type of paramilitary organization until 2019 when I got introduced to Soldier On. And Don and I were talking before we came on air that our paths had originally crossed in Gagetown, just walking through the hallway, and then we reconnected in a local store here in the city. And he noticed my Soldier On hat, and he had been part of Soldier On as well. So that struck up a conversation, and we've maintained a friendship ever since. But the one thing that I see about Remembrance Day, like you said, it's coming up in less than a month. Ever since the lockdowns ended, I've seen a bigger stream of people coming out to pay their support to the veterans and stuff like that, and wanting to learn more about what we did. And I can speak for that because my three daughters go to an amazing school in Conception Bay South, St. George's Elementary, and they, along with other schools around the province, will have their very own Remembrance Day assembly. And this year's going to be really hard for me because my oldest daughter gets to participate in the actual school assembly. So I've been going to their school for a number of years now, seeing the Remembrance Day assemblies and seeing the kids. And so to have my girls wanting to learn more about my time and stuff like that is really special to me.
Brent, I want to bring you into the conversation because as a person who works in the area of mental health, I wanted you to pick up maybe on the thought that Don had shared about how as the years go by, sometimes these memories become even more vivid, contrary to what we're often told that time heals all wounds. What would you say about that and from your own experience as a veteran?
That's a good question. Well, it's a real thing, right? And like all of us have served, and again, it doesn't matter if you serve overseas. Certainly overseas is a far more treacherous environment, but the job is tough, and healing and dealing is a process, and we got to take care of our vets, men and women. They're our parents, they're our brothers, our sisters, our aunts and uncles. And I'm moved by this conversation considerably, and it's a daily process. It's a daily work. I work for my own mental health to heal and deal and process as I work at it every day. Luckily, I've got a fantastic partner, my bride, Kellyanne. She's fantastic, and we work at it. Some days I'm the bug, some days I'm the windshield, and that's it. So I lean into what works for me. It's lifestyle, it's exercise, it's educating myself on the mental process of my, I run workshops on, the mechanism of our perception. Our perception is our reality. And what am I perceiving? Is it happening now? I commit to daily cold exposure. That helps me a lot with it. Again, the food, the exercise, and working on, again, some days I'm debilitated with anguish, and then what I work at being kind. I work at what it takes to be a contributing member to society. I find for myself that giving back helps. That's why I designed that breathwork program. Like my chief diver said, don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution. And one of the solutions we have for our students and staff is a simple little Texas timeout, a 2-minute breathwork program to make them more resilient and adaptive to the day. So it's a daily process. And, our vets, men and women, our firefighters, our police, our paramedics, everyone's a frontline person. And to really commit to the process, and I truly appreciate the support from Veterans Affairs and everybody that commits to that work to take care of our vets, and be kind and remember, and words to that effect. Bernice.
We have today with us the director and producer of a documentary called Fallen Heroes, Their Journey Home. We've also been in studio or joined in studio by 3 veterans who have been with us throughout the program, sharing with us Don Hookey, Brent Bashara, and Simon McInnes. And of course, there's an opportunity this weekend at Spirit of Newfoundland on Saturday to see the film Fallen Heroes, Their Journey Home. And Robert, I want to come back to you on the line. Robert Curtin, producer of this, director of this film, and just ask you, I guess, why you think people in St. John's should take this opportunity to come out and see Fallen Heroes this weekend.
Canada's military is something that we all, as Canadians, should be proud of, and Newfoundlanders should be proud of. I've spent time at Beaumont Hamel. I've seen the caribou, and I know what Newfoundlanders have done in the cause of peace around the world. Canadian forces are our first responders on the world stage, and they have done marvelous things. Unfortunately, as Canadians, we're very mild-mannered and we don't brag. Many Canadians learn our military history by watching American movies and American TV, or maybe a British movie. And in many of those cases, Canada played a major role in those events, but we're written out of the script. So one of the things we want to do is help Canadians understand. And as far as Newfoundlanders go, I know, Karen knows, marvelous soldiers who have served and come from Newfoundland. One of the best snipers in the world, Rob Furlong, came from Newfoundland. I consider that man to be a friend. For 7 years, he had the longest sniper kill. These guys are amazing. We need to help Canadians understand and see what they have achieved and what their sacrifice is. And if I can add something else, this film is not just about our soldiers, because our soldiers could not achieve what they do if they did not have family. And in the end, those families sacrifice as much as the soldiers do. And then when they came back, we did something that no other nation in the world has done. We created the Highway of Heroes. And tens of thousands of Canadians lined those highways to give the last nod to those soldiers as their bodies returned. This is a marvelous story. It's like taking a mirror and putting it in front of us. This is what we as Canadians have done, and we need to be proud of that.
Karen, I want to ask you about something that was mentioned in the film that I guess hadn't really struck me before. My grandfather was a First World War veteran, so I grew up going to Remembrance Square here in Corner Brook with him on Remembrance Day, Memorial Day as well. But something in the film that stood out to me was it talked about how those who had fallen in past conflicts had laid in graves where they fell and were remembered in some cases more by the people of the country that they served in than they were by their own country men and women. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to that as a military historian, the significance of the fact that we brought these men and women home from Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's to me, it's there's so much power in that. I've got chills just thinking about it. It's Afghanistan really changed the way that we think about our fallen, and it was the first time, outside of a few peacekeepers who'd started to trickle home when they were killed on deployments, but very unceremoniously. There has never been, until the war in Afghanistan, there has never been the kind of outpouring of love for these families and these soldiers that we started to see in Afghanistan, because all of our fallen have been buried overseas. In many cases, the families never got a chance to go and see them in their graves. And it was just this open wound that, people just quietly lived with the rest of their lives. But I think if we can bring our soldiers back home, I think that helps with some closure with the families and the friends. And it was done in such a touching way. I mean, these were ceremonies that were created for the people, by the people. In fact, when the reporters first started lining the fences at CFB Trenton in 2002, they were asked to not to come. There was a media ban on all of the repatriations, and this was in 2002 and again in 2006 when we started losing people at a much more frequent rate. But the media bans were overwhelmed by the citizens of these counties that couldn't help themselves but come out. And sure enough, the press came out too, and everybody lined these fences, their faces pressed into the fences, just so that they could be there to support these families who were bringing home their lost loved ones. And I mean, the power in those ceremonies it's so grassroots, and it's so Canadian. And the rest of the world looked at what we were doing and thought, oh my goodness, we need to do something. Look at what the Canadians are doing. And people started to sort of replicate these kinds of ceremonies in their own way. The Americans started doing it, the British started doing it, and in fact, the ramp ceremonies at Kandahar Airfield became basically the NATO standard for all repatriations across all of the coalition countries. And so many people, including many Canadians that served, I would even venture to say including most Canadians that served, don't realize that the ramp ceremonies were actually this very grassroots kind of design by a Canadian soldier who just wanted to send his friends home with dignity. And everybody assumes that must have been an American tradition, but it actually wasn't. And one of the Americans that we spoke to said that the Canadians, and Jim Butters in particular, changed the way that he remembers his fallen soldiers now. These people were changed, and they went on to Iraq and created their own ramp ceremonies. And, I just think it's something to be so proud of. And I hope we as Canadians can, when we see this film, when people see this film, they can see themselves as supporters of veterans. And maybe that makes them supporters of veterans' causes. And maybe they think about that when they vote. We just really, really hope that we can seep into the consciousness of Canadians to help them understand how important this is.
I want to thank you, Karen, and as well to you, Robert, for joining us today. We're going to give the final word to the veterans here in studio. Thanks so much, Karen and Robert, for joining us.
Thank you,
Bernice.
And Dawn, Brent, and Simon, thank you for your service. We're proud of you.
Robert Curtin, they're joining us today, and Karen Storwick, the director and producer, respectively, of Fallen Heroes, Their Journey Home. Dawn, you've already said that you'll be expecting to be emotional as you watch this film. What's it going to mean to you to be in the audience watching this?
My wife's going to be with me, so
You got your person with you.
yeah,
Karen just talked about the importance of family, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
All three of you have referenced family and the support that you've had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I know there's going to be mixed emotions, and no doubt I'll see some of my buddies I haven't seen there probably in a while. So
Right.
I get to rekindle some old bad conversations.
Don, thank you for coming in today. Thank you for your service.
This is why I brought the film to Newfoundland. Is one of the things that I've been doing over the last number of years is doing veterans advocacy, not only here in the province, but all across Canada.
Simon, we're getting ready to wrap up the program, so I don't want to have to cut you off.
Sure.
But unfortunately, we're going to be out of time. I want to thank you, Brent Bashara. Thank you for your service, sir. Thank you, Simon McInnes, as well. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And that is all the time we have today for The Signal. If you missed the conversation, if you caught just part of it, listen on our CBC Listen app or on our YouTube channel. You can catch the whole conversation. You won't be disappointed, I know.